Welcome back to the Chapter Chats and Chill podcast.
Your cozy reading nook where we talk everything about books, tropes, fave characters, and more. This is Elena.
This is Maroua.
And Emma. And we invite you to get comfortable, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and get ready to enter a world where stories come true. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Chapter Chats and Chill podcast. Today, we're going to introduce you to our next reads for 2024, the books that we have been waiting maybe for a long time to read. And before we delve into that, we actually want to have a quick recap about 2023 and our favorite book or books from last year. So I actually have a question for you girls. What was the last book that you read last year, and what was the first book that you started reading this year?
For me, my last read of 2023 was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Okay, so I know that it's supposed to be our common reading for January 2024, but I just couldn't resist the book's calling. I mean, it was right there in front of me, all pink and cute. I just had to pick it up, and I'm so glad I did. The story just really lives up to the hype. I mean, the book is full of events and plot twists, and it has a lot of mystery. But at the same time, it's so sweet and delicate, I'll say. Like, it feels like reading a rather complex fairy tale when you can't help but fall in love with the anti hero. So, yeah, again, I'm so glad I picked it as my last read of the year. And it marks my great comeback to the romantasy genre because I don't know about you girls, but I've been mainly reading romance and contemporary novels over the past year. So I'm really glad I'm coming back into fantasy.
Yay!
I completely agree with Maroua. It's the same for me. For my last book of 2023 was Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I loved it. And it was also my favorite fantasy from last year. And as she said, it was pink and it was everything. I loved everything actually. And yeah, look at her, she's stunning. The book at the beginning say for every girl that has a heart broken,
it says for anyone who has ever made a bad decision because of a broken heart.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, how could this possibly go wrong? Yeah. I love this book. Possible. It was my last one from 2023. And instead, my first of 2024 is gonna be, it is because I'm reading it starting from yesterday, Divine Rivals. But I'm still at 30%, so I don't know that much. And I'm usually don't read the plot. Yeah, the synopsis, because I don't want to spoil anything. But girls and guys, I can say that I really love it. What about you, Emma?
Well, my last book for last year was Once Upon a Broken Heart as well.
Oh, really? I loved.
Yeah.
I think we all cheated at some point.
Yeah. But, I mean, you just, as you said, you can't wait to read this book. I mean, I bought this in Edinburgh and I came back home and I was like, I put it in my bookshelves. And it was looking at me. It was like, it's too cute and too interesting and nice not to read it. As you said, it's impossible. So I don't regret it. I actually last year I read a lot of romantasy and fantasy romance. I think probably 90% of the books that I read was romantasy. But this one was definitely my favorite. Close tie with The Serpent and the Wings of Night, but just the way the author kind of brings you into literally like a fairy tale in such a sweet and gentle way, but also kind of delves into the characters. Usually, I don't want to say too much because it's our next book of the book club, but I think it was a very interesting read because it has the parts, the nice parts of fairy tales, but also the complexity of characters from the books that I usually love. And so it's amazing. If you haven't read it, do it so we can talk about it together in the next episode of our podcast.
Yay!
And then the first book that I read this year was actually A Habit with Me, Midnight Chronicles. And I bought it because of what it says in the back. And I'm going to read it to you because I was very, very excited, but I DNF'd it. actually. So,
Oh
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No
So it
way.
says, I'm going to translate because this is Italian, and I thought the author was Italian, but I actually discovered this was written in German originally. So I don't know if it was a translation for me, but let's get into the back of the book. So it says like, Roxy sighed and I immediately bent over her. Thank you, Shaw, she said. For what? For being there and for being here now. Well, that's what friends are for, right? Is this what we are, friends? Well, of course, I replied. Although Roxy was undoubtedly a friend for me, it seemed like we were both aware that there was something more, something neither of us had the courage to say. So I was kind of intrigued by this, and it's also like paranormal. So you have vampires, and they are kind of like demon hunters, something like that. So I was intrigued by that part, and also like by the love story, but I didn't really like how it was unfolding. So I just, one of my 2024 resolutions was, if you don't love a book, you are allowed to kind of DNF it with no guilt. And so I just decided, there are so many books that we want, well, as a book club. And then I also want to read like on my own. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe someday I'll pick it up again, but not in January for sure.
I love your mantra, Emma. There are too many books and our time is limited, so we should not waste our precious time on books that we don't
Yeah.
like. And it's
Definitely.
totally okay. It's fine. And what about you, Marwa? What is your currently reading?
Actually, I'm reading two different books. The first one is a book written by 5 French authors. It's the story of 5 girls. The book is divided in 5 parts, and each part concerns a certain girl. And so each part is written by an author, and it happens on the night of New Year's Eve. So we follow the love story of each character. And for now, I don't know, I was kind of skeptical towards the first story. I didn't like it that much. I started the second one, but I'm not liking it either. So I don't know if I'm gonna continue it. And I started another book, and the book actually it's not a sequel, but it's the second book of a series called Les Quatre Saisons, aka Four Seasons in English. It's about 4 best friends. So each book is about a specific girl and has a specific theme, specific location. For example, book 1 is A Dark Academia and happens in Edinburgh. And the second book, which I'm currently reading, is about ice skating and it happens in Canada. But yeah, it's really, really good for now. I read like 15% of the book so far.
Are her books translated into English as well?
Unfortunately, no. I know that they're translated in German and I don't know which other languages, but not in English yet. But I really hope that they will be translated someday because they're really cool and like everyone needs to read at least few of them, in my humble opinion, because she's really talented.
Emma, this is our sign to start learning French. This is the sign.
Exactly.
2024.
Well, I mean, I think we both could get like the title, right? The 4 seasons. I mean, so it's a good start.
That's
At least
that's the easy part.
Yeah, you're right.
Did you change?
We
Did
will
you
see.
shift your like genre from here to here?
For
A
me,
little
yes,
bit.
because when I was younger, let's say it like that, I used to read a lot of fantasy and dystopian
Same.
books. But now I don't know. I'm really motivated to go back into reading more romantasy because it's the kind of stories that makes me most disconnected from the real world. And I'm at a stage of my life where I really need that. So fantasy words it is.
Yeah.
Same. I think my phases were like a little bit longer than year to year, but as Marwa, same for me. Like I think around maybe middle school. I don't know when Twilight came out. I was like really into fantasy romance, is it young adult kind of, I think?
It's young adult.
Young
Yes.
adult. And then dystopia dystopian novels as well. I was obsessed 100%. And then I just started reading a little bit more of like self-help books or like personal growth, something like that, just because I was studying like too much, honestly. And so I didn't really have like so much energy to put into these beautiful, beautiful stories of, fantasy books or romance and fiction in general. Last year, definitely, I think it was my fantasy romance comeback as well. And I see that, as like my trend for 2024 as well, probably. But I would also love to read more dark academia. I don't know if it's, the whole Saltburn, is it? Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
You haven't?
No, not
You
yet.
should.
Me
If you
neither,
like
but I
dark
want.
academia. No,
want to.
girls, we have to. Yeah, if we meet, we have to rewatch it together. Because I need
Is it
to
that
hear
good,
your
really?
thoughts. For me, I love the dark academia vibes, but I was also watching it like late at night when I was alone at home. It got like a little bit creepy. Like these thrillers, murder movies, they give me kind of a little bit of anxiety, especially if I'm watching them on my own. So I think I paused the movie halfway through. I wasn't planning on resuming it, honestly, because I liked it, but it was also like giving me anxiety. So I wanted to have like a good night's sleep that night. But then I don't know, that movie has something that really makes you want to watch the whole thing. And so I finished it and I loved it. The more time passes, the more I love the movie and I want to talk about it with everyone. I think the vibe is very cool. The images, the lights from how the scenes were shot was really, really great. And the whole cast, they were amazing, wonderful. Yeah, I loved it. And the English accent. It has these beautiful components. You need to watch it. And I'm curious to hear what you think when you have.
I've read some negative reviews, let's say, that it had disturbing scenes, or I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It was very, like for me, it was very weird to watch at certain points. And definitely, maybe there should be some trigger warning somewhere. But I think it's also interesting how, these kind of disturbing scenes were portrayed in like very much unfiltered. And so I loved that of the movie. Also, the director is a woman. She's named Emerald Fennell. I'm here to support female directors all the way through it. So I think not everyone will like it for sure. So that's also why I was curious to see if you watched the movie. I think it's very cool, like from a cultural perspective as well, kind of.
I'm taking notes.
I'm putting in my mental list. I will not forget it.
Okay, so moving ahead, is there something you would like to read more of or less of this year?
I would like to read more of romantasy because I read it like very few of them this year. And also I would like to explore and expand more my reading taste and getting out of my comfort zone. And that's why this year I would really like to read more self-help and self-improvement books. That's why I'm gonna ask you some advice. And there are already a couple of books that I put in my 2024 reading list that I'm gonna talk about later. But yeah, I want to explore more and expand my reading taste. I don't want to stick with just one category this year. I'm a mood reader, so I always changing like taste and switching genre. But this year I want to really stepping out of my comfort zone. What about you, girls?
I love that you said the self-help books, and I love them. I haven't read a lot of those last year, and I think I'd like to bring some onto my like 2024 TBR. But it made me think of a TikTok that I saw recently about a girl that was saying how, she doesn't read a lot of self-help books written by men because she thinks their advices don't really apply to women because we, face different maybe obstacles in our lives or different expectations as well. She was talking a lot of, the expectations that society have towards women's lives, especially as you grow older. So I think for actually this year, I'd love to read some more like self-help books and personal growth books written by female authors. And I'm going to make a little research about that. So guys, if you're listening and you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments and we would really appreciate that. Besides that, I definitely want to get some of the books off my TBR, especially the books that I have like physically on my bookshelves. So that will be my goal, because I've been buying so many physical books and they're over there, not read. So maybe it's time for me to kind of get to read those. And also, I would love to read more romantasy or fantasy books that have elements from non-European folklore. So I have a book that has, I think it's the retelling or has some elements of Korean folklore. And then I also found a book from Canadian Polish author. And so that is kind of my goal. And in terms of authors, I would love to read something from Leigh Bardugo. So
Nice.
I have Six of Crows. So maybe that's going to be the first one, but definitely I've been hearing so much about her from you guys and also like on TikTok. And so maybe it's time. How about you, Maroua?
So from my side, I really want to read more thrillers. Like I probably read one or two my entire life, and I really want to dig more into that genre.
Yeah.
Also, I really want to try comics like Lore Olympus and that kind of webtoons,
Elena,
because I
you
heard
read
they're
that one
really
as
great.
well,
Yeah, I love
right?
it. It's
I loved it
great.
too.
It looks so pretty and it's pink, so
Yes.
I need to get it.
Pink.
Also, I want to finish all the series that I started. Like, for example, The Darker Shade of Magic. The fourth book came out last year. I want to read it. I also want to read King of Scars.
Speaking of thrillers, have you read The Secret Society by Donna Tart?
I have it. I have the physical book, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay.
I'm reading it like really slowly,
Mhm.
and I'm liking it, but it's so hard to like getting into it. And I asked it to my friends because
Really?
I was like talking about it, and she was like, oh, "I'm reading too," but it's since like September that I like reading it, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's the same for me." So yes, it's
Okay.
it's nice, but the chapters are so long. Like I hate long chapter, and
Same.
sometimes it's hard to understand what is going on and why the main character is doing what he's doing and what's the main purpose. And I hope it's one of that books that at the end you realize everything and whatever. If it's not, I'm gonna really be angry and mad about it.
I read it in high school. I think by now you know it, guys. I don't have like the best memory in terms of recalling old books that I read, but I think by the end it should make sense. I remember really, really loving the book, and also like the end wasn't disappointing to me at all. So hopefully, I hope that will be the same for you.
Okay.
And also, I loved what you said about like the vibes of the book, because it's the same vibes that I got from Saltburn. So I mean, yeah, it really,
Interesting.
especially the first part, really, really reminded me of Donna Tartt's book. The second part is much different because it's set at a house. I really, really loved it, and I've been looking for something similar to The Secret Society.
Have you read
ha-
If We Were Villains?
Yeah, I was suggesting the
No,
same.
I have it on my Kindle though.
I read it. It was cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. It wasn't my best read, but I liked it.
Mm,
How about you, Elena?
interesting.
I haven't read, but it's so recommended on TikTok and also on YouTube. So I was like, oh, maybe that's even better than The Secret History of Donna Tartt. But like people say, no, it's a good competitor. Like they are on the same level. It is definitely on my list. Every October, I'm doing like a thematic kind of reading list, and I always have If We Were Villains inside. Like it's just you have to read it, and I never read. So maybe this year, this year is gonna be the year. Yeah.
Is it like a back to school reading list, like for fall, October?
For Halloween, like it's for Halloween. So I would like to read thematic book, and because I know that this is a dark academia kind of vibes. That's why I'm always putting on October and for my Halloween reading list.
It's the same for me. Like each October, I pick The Secret History, and I plan on reading it, but I never actually do it though. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but it is what it is.
It's fine. As Elena said, it's also cool to be mood readers. And so if you're not really in the mood, there's no point in just forcing you to read a book just because it's on your TBR. You can just, I love being flexible with that. Maybe I'm too flexible with it, but no, it's cool.
Yeah, true. And I'm also glad to see that this is a pattern for a lot of readers, so it's okay.
You're not alone in this.
Thank you, girls.
So going back onto our 2024 most anticipated books, do you have like any new releases that you want to read this year, or just books that were on your TBR and you really like you think this is the right time to read them?
I have a duology. Elena, maybe you'll recognize it. It's about two rival journalists finding love through a magical connection where they must face the depth of hell in a war among gods and in order to seal their fate forever. The books are called Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, both by Rebecca Ross. I read so many good reviews about this book. I can't wait to make my own opinion about it.
Nice. I can wait to hear your review, actually.
I
After
can't
you
wait to
finish.
start reading it.
Yeah.
Well, that book is definitely on my TBR as well. It's not on my list for today's like books that I'd like to discuss with you though, because I have like a few more that really caught my attention recently. And even if I have a super long TBR, whenever I find like a new book that really hooks me on TikTok or on Goodreads, I bring that to the top of the list. I have to work on this maybe, but I have discovered a really nice book. It's about a girl that was raised in a small village where magic is considered bad and people with magic are considered as monsters. But she does have magic. One day she unleashes it with like very dangerous or bad consequences. And so once she does, there's like a demon that is warden of the woods. He comes, offers her a bargain, and essentially it's 1 year of servitude in exchange of a wish that he will make true for her. And the book's title is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. It caught my attention because it kind of gives me Adi LaRue vibes in a way. Which I really loved. Like, of course, I love how the author brings descriptions and just like the way she writes. I love it. But I was kind of disappointed by the ending of that book specifically. And so I'm hoping that this book instead will kind of, have more of the vibe that I love towards the ending. I don't know, I might be disappointed, but we'll see. I'm very curious to read it. And also, it's the book that takes elements from the Polish folklore that I was telling you about. So, very excited to learn more about Polish culture as well. How about you,
That's
Elena?
nice. As I said before, I would like to read more self-help books. Actually, this one is quite popular, but I'm gonna like quote a part that I really like and stuck with me. For sure, you already know it. And they say, with the same habits, you'll ended up with the same results, but with better habits, anything is possible. This is Atomic Habits. I saw on TikTok that our brain is programmed in a way that our parents like teach us, like taught us. Like they fed us with the kind of rejection. That's our job to kind of reprogramming our brain system. Actually, I would like to explore more of this side to learn more about it. I don't know if you have, are you ready?
No, I haven't. It's on my TBR, like
okay.
a mental one. I'm very curious to read it though.
Another more book that I really would like to get into is the Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Just like it's gonna be out this year at the beginning of the year, around I think March or April. And I just read it, this part, like you say, it's an historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age. And I was like, ooh, first reaction shock. So, so yeah, and that's Leigh Bardugo writing, so it's gonna be amazing for sure.
Is it part of a series or is it?
No, it's a standalone. That is even better because
that's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also because when she writes series or book series, it's gonna take like 1
Years.
decade. Yeah. And I don't have the time. So standalone are perfect.
Yeah. We don't have the patience for super long series.
Definitely not.
The memory? No. So what are your other books on your 2024 reading list, girls?
I have another one, which is the first paranormal book of Ali Hazelwood, the author of The Love Hypothesis. It's about a girl who's been dragged into a world full of vampires, where she's forced to marry a were alpha who doesn't like her very much. It gives me an enemies to lovers, and honestly, I don't need to know more, okay?
Fair enough.
The book is called Bride. I also really want to read Check and Mate by the same author. This one's more like a young adult one, and I've heard that it's very very reminiscent of the TV show The Queen's Gambit. So I'm very curious about it because that show was
Interesting.
really, really good.
Yes, I loved it. My next book is actually the fourth in a series. It will come out, I think, in September 2024, and I still need to read the third book of the series. The series is called Beasts of the Briar. It's Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's very, very beautiful. The first book I loved because of a few elements. So first, the protagonist is a young girl. She's a bookish girl, so she loves books. She works at a bookshop. So it's this bookshop owned by an old man. She's trying to bring more fantasy and romance to the offerings, the books that you find at the bookshop, but the owner is kind of against it. So I could sympathize with her. Also, her mom disappeared mysteriously, leaving no traces. And so her dad's existence now revolves around just going on journeys to find the love of his life, aka the mom. The protagonist is kind of left alone. And one day her dad also disappears. So she started searching for him and she ends up in this fantasy world, in a castle specifically, where four cursed princes live. And then, yeah, she strikes like a bargain with them for them to free the father and take her instead. I think it was very, very cute. There's a lot of romance and well, I don't know if there's a lot of spice, but there is definitely romance and interesting plot twist. So there are four princes, one for each seasons, but of course there is also like the prince of the underground, who is like a villain or, you know, main enemy, very much more Le Gray. I love the first book and the second, not so much. Each book, I think, is going to be about the story and the realm of one of the princes. And so I just want to read the whole series and eventually end up with the story of the Prince of the Underground. So that is why it's still on my TBR. But I think it's very, like, it's a very cool series if you loved Akotar or if you love Beauty and the Beast and retellings. So maybe give it a try and let me know how it goes.
I cannot mention book 2 and 3 of Once Upon a Broken Heart, aka The Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love, because I just need to know how the story ends. And now that I have the first book on my bookshelf, I also have to get the other two to complete the collection because I'm a total freak and I either have the book on my phone or I have the physical copy, but I can't have parts on my phone and parts on my bookshelf.
I'm
I'm like a
actually the
total freak.
opposite. No, it makes sense.
Yep. And also there are so many like different edition, like UK edition, US edition, and also Australian edition that are completely different and whatever. So too many edition. I just want one.
Yeah.
And that's it. They have to
A
match. It's a
monopoly.
full-time job going on here.
True.
Okay. So
I actually do the opposite. So usually if there is like a series of books that I really want to read and I know I'm going to love, like this one, of course, like I get the first book, the physical copy, and then the ebook version of the rest of the series. I mean,
just the ebook?
Yeah.
You're a monster. Why?
Well, we love monsters here. We're all for the fantasy. No,
Yeah,
but
true.
no, it's just, I mean, I'm really into like ebooks because, you know, it's just handy. You can bring them with you. And also I love that I'm using a Kindle and I can, you know, when I highlight something on the Kindle version, it gets synchronized with Goodreads. And so you can just keep all your notes and favorite quotes there. But I have to say, since I purchased a copy of Once Upon a Broken Heart, I loved reading, like it reminded me how good reading a physical book is. And so I think for 2024, I might buy a little bit more physical copies than I used to in the last couple of years.
Yay.
I also, yeah, but I also want to keep it like a minimal version of like a bookshelf. So I don't know. But yeah, reading, I mean, there is no comparison really. You have pros and cons with both like physical and ebooks, but I think like, you know, just the smell of the physical books and it's so calming, so relaxing. And also you don't have like another screen, which is very good, especially if you work on a computer a lot like I do. So we'll see.
True. It's a different experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, not necessarily
Totally.
better or worse, but definitely different. You're right.
And speaking of Goodreads, do you girl have any goals you want to achieve this year? Or did you have any goals in 2023?
Yes. I'm always setting my Goodreads
Ooh.
goals at the beginning of the year. Like the 1st of January is the first thing I do. But it's just, I don't want to stick with the goal. There was one year that I failed the challenge, but it's completely fine and normal. It's okay. I don't want to like put too much pressure on one thing that I love doing and I'm just doing as hobbies and just to relax. Last year, goal was like 12 books because I was like completely in a slump throughout the whole year. And I read it actually. I marked like 16 books. So it was a great year for me. But this year I'm gonna read it 27 because I'm gonna turn 27. So I was like,
I like
I'm
the
gonna read.
idea.
Yeah. So there's one book each year of my life. Wow. That's so
Wow.
deep now. What about you, girls?
Well, I think I set 20 books for last year's Goodreads challenge, and I actually read 31. Yeah, I did. Like, I wasn't even sure I could read 20, to be honest, but I think I found like my groove with it, and definitely helped with the whole ACOTAR series that brought me back into reading. And I think fantasy romance books are so addictive. So at least for me, I can't, if I start a series and it's really, really good with a good pace that keeps me hooked to the series, I could finish one book and start the next one right after. Yeah, I think that's also part of why I read so much. But for this year, I'm totally agree with you, Elena, like in trying not to make a hobby like a stressful thing by setting a goal that you have to achieve 100%. So I'm just keeping it very, very simple. I think 13 books. I was thinking 12, like one for each month. But then I like 13 as a number more. So I just added another one and we'll see. And you, Mara?
Personally, I didn't have any Goodreads goals last year as I wasn't really into the reading game, unfortunately. I'm kind of ashamed of it, but there have been
You should
months
not.
where I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but there's kind of a pressure when you're on the reading game once again. It's like either you have to read every day or you're not considered as a real reader.
Yes. I know.
I
I know what
totally
you
agree.
mean. I agree. And I love those like TikToks or Reels where you have what I read in a day for 7 days, maybe, or something like that. I think, Elena, you shared one with us a while ago. And I first discovered it that way. And then I was thinking, like, I love to see people that read a lot, but I was thinking if I was to film the same kind of reel or TikTok or video, whatever, I would probably have like Monday, I read 5 pages. Tuesday, I read
Same.
1 page. Maybe one Wednesday, I haven't read anything. But I mean, maybe we should just create one. I think it's good to see a variety of different people following just their pace without shame or guilt. And so I think it would be very, very cool to just see people that, we have a book podcast and a book club, and then we also sometimes don't read anything in a day or maybe in a week or a month, and it's fine. So you're not any less of a reader if you haven't really if you're on a slump or you don't really have the time to read as you used to. It's fine either way.
I like your idea, and I really think we should do that reel.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
Noted.
Anyway, this year I'm rather motivated, so I'm settling for at least 12 books to start with, which means one book a month. For the moment, it seems feasible, especially given our monthly book club. So,
Yes.
yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right, guys. So this is it for today. The next episode will come out on the 31st of January, and it will be the second episode from our book club series. We will be talking about, well, you probably can guess it by now, Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. All of the books that we mentioned during today's episode, you can find them in the description down below. So if you found any books that you want to add to your TBR, just check it out in the description. We'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. Thank you for tuning into Chapter Chat and Chill.
If you loved this episode, make sure you give it a 5-star rating, thumbs up, and comment below what you want to hear next.
To stay connected in between episodes, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Chapter Chats and Chill.